Hello everyone, today is 23rd of October, now it's about 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be published towards the evening on my Patreon and Boosty pages with all the additional reports that Russian media will share with the public on main events. And if you are looking for more news from Russia, you're more than welcome to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. Links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. Monthly subscription on Patreon starts from $5, and then you can choose your level of support while subscribing. So let's talk about news now. And first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. Main activities are taking place on South Donetsk and Pokrovsk directions of the front line, although obviously other sectors are also quite active. And let's start with South Donetsk sector of the front line. After liberation of Ugledar a couple of weeks ago, Russian troops further advancing in direction of Novoukrainka, Bogoyavlenka settlements on the northern and northern western side of Ugledar. And on the northern eastern side, Russian troops are conducting operations to establish full control over the Katerinovka and Antonovka settlements. Both these villages are disputed right now between their sides, and also Russian troops from southern side are closing into Yelizavetovka settlement, and probably before end of this week, battles will begin for Yelizavetovka and Ilinka settlements. Also, Russian DRGs most likely are quite active in these areas already. Also, obviously, when it comes to southern sectors, in this case, southern flank of Pokrovsk sector, Russian troops are closing into Kurakhova settlement, which is the main logistical hub of Kiev regime on southern sectors, and most likely before end of this week, we will see beginning of their final battle for Kurakhova. Russian troops already are conducting operations inside this town, and there are several blocks of this city, according to some reports, already are controlled by Russian troops. When it comes to southern sector of the Pokrovsk sector, also obviously main hotspot is Gornyak settlement, which is on 2/3, according to some reports, are controlled by Russian troops at this point, and clearing operation is underway, and most likely even before Gornyak will be fully liberated by Russian troops from Western occupying regime forces, we will see beginning of the clearing operation in Kurachovka settlement, also on the southern side of Gornyak. And both these settlements on their turn are located on the southern flank of not just Pokrovsk sector, but Selidovo city, to be more precise. And this is Selidovo, by the way, which is, some may argue, is encircled, some may say it's in operational encirclement. In any ways, all the roads that are connecting Selidovo with the Pokrovsk city are under direct Russian fire control, and according to some sources, Kiev regime and the Kiev regime's general staff already issued order to its troops in Selidovo to get ready for evacuation, for withdrawal from this relatively large town. As you can see, dear friends, if we zoom in, it's quite a big, relatively big town. With high importance, obviously, especially at this stage of special military operation. And if these informations are correct about preparations of the Kiev regime's garrison in Selidovo to withdraw, then it is highly likely that before end of this week we will see some crucial changes in this direction. Maybe entire town will become under full Russian control. Also, Russian troops are further improving positions in Pokrovsk Mirnograd direction, and simultaneously Kiev regime, because Kiev regime deployed additional several brigades in this direction, is trying to regain initiative at least on any of the directions. Some local scale counteroffensives are conducted by Kiev regime's forces, and for example, yesterday one of the armored groups of the Kiev regime with their Western equipment or Western armored vehicles and so on, tried to conduct this local scale offensive in Krasny Yar direction. This group was ambushed and completely destroyed I shared video of the aftermath of this ambush on my Telegram channel. You can clearly see it's like a graveyard of their NATO military equipment. Inter-armored group was basically sacrificed by Kyiv regime in this useless counteroffensive. I guess after liberation of Kurakhova and Selidova and settlements around these towns, we will see final phase of offensive operations in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd direction. And dear friends, as I already said, according to some reports, Kyiv regime deployed 3 to 4, according to some reports, 5 brigades in direction of Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, 10 to 15,000 military personnel at least to somehow hold on Russian offensive operations. So therefore, obviously, it will take some time for Russian troops to demilitarize this grouping of forces as much as possible before this final push will take place towards this major logistical hub on central and southern sectors of the front line, and even for northern sectors of the front line, I mean Pokrovska, Mirnograd agglomeration. After all, Pokrovsk was their main logistical hub in terms of railway and in terms of highways, always for eastern parts of this former Soviet republic. Also, dear friends, Russian troops are further improving positions in Toretsk sector of the front line, although some may argue that some sort of operational pause was established in Toretsk sector because nowadays main focus of the Russian armed forces are, of course, on Pokrovsk sector, on the southern flanks of Pokrovsk sector and South Donetsk sector itself. Toretsk partially controlled by Russian troops, partially controlled by Kyiv regime's formations. Where is Toretsk? That's it. So this is Toretsk, and as you can see, dear friends, city is split approximately 50-50 at this point. 50% is controlled by Russian troops, 50% by Kyiv regime forces, but due to focus of the Russian forces on Kurakhova, Selidova, Pokrovsk direction right now, probably we would not see some decisive actions in Toretsk direction, at least for a week or two. Although who knows, I may be mistaken, and before end of this week, Toretsk will also become under full Russian control. Anything is possible at this point of the special military operation because Kyiv regime's troops in many sectors of the front are on the verge of collapse. As we see many times during their offensive operations that Russian troops are conducting on different sectors, when entire front line is collapsing and Russian troops advancing for 10, 20, 30 kilometers in relatively short time. Also, somewhat similar situation in Chisovyar direction. Russian troops advancing on the northern side of Chisovyar. Russian troops further improving positions inside the Chisovyar itself, but no major events are taking place. No major offensive operations are taking place at this point. Similar story with the Seversk direction and Kupiansk direction. Although obviously during this local scale clashes, Russian troops further improving positions. And yesterday, I reported about liberation of the Novosadova on southern Kupiansk sector of the front line. And most likely, in upcoming days, we will see Russian advances in Terny, Yampolovka direction. It does make sense. You don't have to be military expert, isn't it? Sometimes when you are reading dozens and dozens of news on some military matters, on a situation on the line of contact, you get certain ideas in which direction this or that operation will continue. So as I said, despite some sort of operational pause in Seversk, Kupiansk directions, Russian troops still are advancing as a result of these local scale skirmishes. And when it comes to Kupiansk sector of the front line, there were reports that Kyiv regime forces try to conduct a local scale counteroffensive operation in Tolsty Lug direction, in Zilony Shlях direction, and yet another armored group of Kiev regime was destroyed. Basically, as I understand, Russian troops allow Kiev regime's armored group to get closer to Zilony Shlях to deploy its infantry. And once this happened, Russian artillery opened fire. Number of military vehicles of Kiev regime was destroyed, and then Kiev regime's infantry become a target of artillery. And finally, Russian BTRs, Russian armored personnel carriers, moved in, and they're basically almost in the point blank range neutralized this group of Kiev regime's forces. There are videos, by the way, that are circulating on internet about destruction of this unit. Yet another useless, absolutely useless counteroffensive, so-called counteroffensive of the Kiev regime's forces. Reports are that with this operation, Kiev regime was trying to basically release from encirclement a significant number of Kiev regime's forces that are in a cold room on the northern part of Zilony Shlях settlement, but they failed there, and they failed big time. Initiative is in Russian hands, obviously, although one should keep in mind that at this point, even though Russian armed forces already destroyed, neutralized 25,000, more than 25,000 military personnel of the Kiev regime and NATO mercenaries in the Kursk salient area, and this salient itself is shrinking, isn't it? That was occupied on initial stages, temporarily occupied by Kiev regime, and despite these heavy losses, Kiev regime still has in this area about 10 to 15,000 military personnel, and obviously it will still take some time for Russian troops to completely liberate these borderline areas of the Kursk region, and simultaneously, dear friends, Russian troops will probably continue to use this opportunity to create cold rooms and neutralize groupings of the Kiev regime forces one by one, for as long as Kiev regime is willing to send additional reinforcements in the Kursk salient direction. And as you know, in Zelensky's so-called victory plan, maintenance of the positions in the Kursk salient is one of the key points, right? So most likely, these Kursk borderline areas will be used as a will be trap for Kiev regime, let's say this way, for some time. Uh, for some time. And that's it when it comes to short summary of the situation on the Ukrainian battlefield and the Kursk salient area. Initiative is in Russian hands, and despite all the attempts to hold Russian offensive operations to somehow regain initiative in any of the directions, Kiev regime's forces are failing and will continue to fail because, as I said many times before, in no universe, Kiev regime and NATO mercenaries will be able to achieve anything anywhere. That's it. Now let's continue with some more news, and we have this report from Interfax news agency that during the last night, Russian air defense systems neutralized 14 drones that was launched by Kiev regime to strike deep inside Russian territory. No reports at this point about casualties or more or less significant damage. On the ground, there are 10 drones from these 14 were intercepted in Crimea area over the Crimea Peninsula, and the 4 drones were intercepted over the Rostov region. Same time, at least 4 naval drones were destroyed by Russian troops, also in Crimea direction, in Black Sea aquatory, basically. And this is reported by TASS news agency. Let's continue. Interfax is reporting that United Kingdom will transfer will allocate 120 million pounds for the Kiev regime to build more naval drones. So, as I mentioned many times before, majority of operations with long-range strikes by aerial drones or naval drones in southern sectors are conducted under stricter control of the United Kingdom's intelligence and the militaries. That's why quite often there are reports about destruction or neutralization of the British military and intelligence personnel whenever strikes are taking place on points of concentration of these so-called mercenaries in the southern sectors of the front line. And this information clearly confirms what I was saying for a long time, that it is London, British military and intelligence that are basically leading or controlling all this planning and controlling and conducting basically all these long range strikes with aerial vehicles and naval drones in southern sectors of the front. And that's why they are allocating another 120 million pounds to build there some more naval drones. And this is also interesting because in terms that just a couple of days ago, Russian armed forces conducted long range strike on one of their military Kiev regime's military industrial complex facility in Zaporozhye on the bank of Dnieper River. Shipyard was targeted, basically, shipbuilding factory, on which, according to Russian media, Kiev regime, with the active support of its NATO backers, were reassembling or assembling these naval drones. And this is somewhat emergency allocation of another 120 million pounds probably are somewhat connected with that Russian successful long-range strike on a facility that was used to reassemble these drones by Kiev regime. Probably they will try to find some another facility where they will build these drones, but I don't think it will take too long for Russian intelligence to find out location of that new area, a new manufacturing plant, and of course, long-range precise strikes will follow soon. TASS news agency is reporting that, according to Russian military personnel that was involved in an operation to liberate Mikhailovka, during this operation, British or English-speaking mercenaries were also neutralized. Mikhailovka is a southern sector, obviously, of their front line. This is a South Donetsk sector. And when I was reading this information, I was thinking maybe this unit, a small unit of English-speaking mercenaries were staff from SAS, British SAS, because they refused to surrender. And Russian troops had to take action, and that group was completely neutralized. So more losses on part of most likely British special forces. RT is reporting that Ukrainian troops are increasingly refusing to obey orders, according to El País media outlet. This is Spanish media outlet, if I remember correctly. So Ukrainian servicemen are increasingly refusing to follow orders and fleeing their positions, according to leadership of accusing their leadership of assigning them for suicidal missions. The Spanish newspaper El País reported on Monday, citing several Ukrainian officers. Their outlet claimed that soldiers from 4 brigades fighting near the besieged settlement of Kurachovo in Russia's Donetsk People's Republic have claimed that the future of the war is bleak for their interests because there are not enough replacements. Why are we retreating? Because we have no rotations, we don't rest, we are demoralized. One officer told the outlet, adding that there is a growing problem of Ukrainian soldiers fleeing their positions. I had a friend, we called him England. He fought the entire war on the front line in Rabotino, Solidar, Kherson. He was exhausted. He could not take it anymore, and the commander did not give him a break. A few days ago, he left just like that, the officer said. A Ukrainian sergeant who goes by Churbanov also told the Spanish outlet that the shortage of soldiers had become the biggest problem facing the Ukrainian military, noting that servicemen often have to spend 3 months in their positions without rest or rotation. So yet another confirmation of information that we already know, that Kiev regime is experiencing massive shortages when it comes to manpower. And according to some articles in the Western media, by the way, Uh, no one really wants in Kiev controlled territory to fight. Maybe with the exception of some ideologized neo-Nazi and fascist elements. That's it. When it comes to ordinary people, they never wanted to become proxies for West and to be sacrificed by Western geopolitical agenda. And even Western outlets have to acknowledge that it's not just about shortages of military equipment, but it's about, first of all, it's about shortages of manpower and uh, and about low morale among Kiev regime's forces and their absence of willingness to fight among population in Kiev-controlled territory. That's when it comes to updates about this special military operation. Now let's talk about some other topics. And of course, one of the main news for yesterday, today, and tomorrow is and will be BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia's capital of Russia's Tatarstan Autonomous Republic. And as I reported in my yesterday's update, uh, delegations from over 30 countries are participating in this BRICS summit. Leaders, world leaders are coming in, and it is interesting to observe, by the way, some reaction from the collective West, reaction from some politicians, some so-called media outlets, when they, on one hand, trying to ignore, but cannot they cannot completely ignore this major event for 2024, actually. So therefore, simultaneously they try to downgrade the importance of this event, but they are failing on that also. And there are some quite interesting articles with headlines, strong headlines are appearing now and will continue. I guess, but it demonstrates, isn't it, that Western media, Western politicians were lying all along, right? When they were pushing this narrative that Russia is isolated and no one is doing business with Russia and the West is victorious and that kind of crap, right? You take a look at the videos from BRICS summit or some pictures, and you know straight away if if any country is isolated uh, from the world is definitely not Russia, definitely not Russia. But anyways, let's go through this news. BRICS to make some very important decisions in Kazan, according to Russian President Vladimir Putin. So BRICS members are expected to reach decisions on a range of critical issues aimed at the strengthening and improving cooperation within the group. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Tuesday at its annual gathering being held in this year in the city of Kazan. He made the remarks during a meeting with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is also attending their 16th BRICS summit. So yes, Putin is absolutely correct. There are huge expectations, huge expectations. In my yesterday's first update, I spoke about this. There were expectations that new members will join the organization. I was skeptical on that, and yesterday I shared news from deputy of the Russian foreign minister that in 2024's agenda of the BRICS, there is no, further enlargement of the organization is definitely not their main topic. There are some other issues that needs to be worked on. So that's the answer on the topic. Will new members join BRICS during the Kazan summit? Most likely no, but there are huge expectations when it comes to financial side of the cooperation between BRICS member states and all the countries that want to join BRICS and want to cooperate with BRICS. And me personally, as I said very many times, and many other people also are expecting some very important decisions to be announced about creation of alternative financial and the banking system. That's what is needed right now for this world, not just for BRICS, but for the world, because Western financial and banking system cannot be trusted. It's weaponized so much so that it presents danger for everybody that is dependent on that system, right? So therefore, I guess when the Russian president said the very important decisions are to be made or announced during the Kazan summit, most likely today and tomorrow, because yesterday was a warm up basically to main part of the BRICS summit. Among these crucial decisions, hopefully there will be some that are connected with this topic of alternative financial and the banking system. And Vzgled newspaper is reporting that, well, as I already said, Western media and Western politicians, on one hand, are trying to ignore BRICS summit. In other hand, because they are failing. I mean, this is too big, right? This is a major event for 2024. How are you going to ignore it completely? I mean, it's madness, isn't it? So because they cannot completely ignore this event, they are trying to downgrade on one hand uh, importance of this summit, and simultaneously they are forced basically to acknowledge that BRICS is a power, and they are coming up with some stronger articles. For example, CNBC is claiming that BRICS summit in Kazan is challenging US and the global north. Whatever global north is, by the way, probably Western propaganda going to push now this narrative that there is a global south and there is global north. There is no global north, by the way, right? There is no global north. It's nonsense. Russia is one of the most northern countries uh, that exist in this world, and Russia is part of BRICS, right? So you cannot operate with terminology global north. What the heck, man? Do you know map of this world? But anyways, I would not be surprised at all if whoever come up with this new talking point, global north, I would not be surprised if that person or that group of people are so uneducated that they have no idea where Russia is located. That's a possibility, by the way. Because total idiocy and low education is definitely trademark of the modern Western elites, isn't it? I mean, they're imbeciles. I mean, majority. Let's be clear. Public figures, the so-called elites in the collective West, vast majority of them are poorly educated, stupid, or immoral degenerates and imbeciles. That's just factual. But anyways, let's translate this news a little bit. So let's see what CBS, what is CNBC? Yes, CNBC, this propaganda outlet of the neolibs and the deep state has to say. So the BRICS summit has become a challenge for the global north, imaginary global north, including the United States. As CNBC reports, the BRICS summit, which began on October 22nd, has become a challenge for the global north, led by United States. Russia, which holds the BRICS presidency, used the opportunity to attack countries of the global to attract countries of the global south, including Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America, to this international association. The report says, according to a TV channel, Russia contrasted the BRICS union with the so-called global north, which is led by United States. They're economically isolated and sanctioned country demonstrates the breadth of its influence uh, and respect on the world stage, using the summit to strengthen its position and influence. The TV channel noted earlier the U.S. Time magazine reported that despite attempts by the United States and Europe to isolate Russia, the heads of the many countries intend to meet with the Russian President Vladimir Putin at the BRICS summit in Kazan. And well, no matter how long and how many times this Western propaganda gonna push this narrative that Russia is isolated, Russia is on the edge of breaking down, and this and that. No matter how many times they're gonna repeat this nonsense, pointer is that it's collective West that is getting more and more isolated from this world, and the world is much bigger, much bigger than a Western world, right? This collective West. That's what is happening really, and Russia is major part of emerging multipolar world, major, of course, member of the BRICS organization, and definitely will not and cannot be isolated. And yet again, when it comes to this some new talking point, global north, it does not make no sense. By the way, Russia is as northern country as it can get, right? So what are they talking about here? Some stupid idiots, man. Anyways, let's continue, dear friends, and before I will share with you some more news, let me notice that this channel, several channels actually that I'm working on, are completely subscriber funded. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, and think we deserve to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support my work uh, with a donation or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. Or PayPal, Boosty, Patreon, or crypto wallet. Uh, Everything is there. So yes, that's been said. Let's continue with some more news. And RIA Novosti is reporting that Hezbollah conducted long-range missile strikes on military base of Israel in Haifa area. Haifa is one of the biggest cities in Israel, and there are some videos were even circulating on internet about these long-range strikes with some ballistic missiles. Israel, on its terms, is also, of course, targeting, continues to target Lebanon, positions of Hezbollah. Although, by the way, when entire blocks being destroyed in different settlements, including Beirut, it is hard to really take seriously statements of IDF or Israeli leadership that they are targeting Hezbollah. Water 10-story apartment building or entire block of these 10-story apartment buildings have to do with one or two Hezbollah fighters that maybe are living in that neighborhood or were noticed in that neighborhood. You cannot destroy entire blocks just because you think they are one or two fighters of your enemy, right? In the same way, you cannot blow up entire bank building, for example, if some criminals went in and take hostages, right? You're going to conduct some special military operation or special police operation, but not blow up entire building. But tell this to Israeli leadership and leadership of IDF. They have no care about casualties among civilians, and I'm sick and tired on commenting on these atrocities that they are committing. Unfortunately, world is so uh, divided, and world community is so much divided and incapable of acting when it's necessary, that there are no challenges for Israel leadership. Seems like they can act any way they want. They can kill as many civilians they want, and that's exactly what they are doing. And they seem unstoppable for now, which is a shame on humanity, obviously. Also, this news that Gutierrez, by the way, I was just talking about BRICS, and I forgot to mention that it's not just the world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, and delegations, big delegations from over 30 countries that are in Kazan right now to participate in BRICS summit, but also Secretary General of UN, Gutierrez. Also, RT is reporting that so-called president of US, and I'm saying so-called because I don't think anybody in this world really believes that Biden was truly acting as a president, and truly understand what the hell is going on. He barely can recognize himself while watching in a mirror. So this is just so-called president, nothing more. So he had some speech yesterday, that was, I believe, and he basically called to lock up Trump. openly in public like it's nothing. So U.S. is more increasingly looks like some sort of banana republic when political leadership is openly discussing looking up their opponents. That's something that U.S. was accusing other countries for decades and decades and decades, and now U.S. political class is on such a low level that are, I mean, they themselves are calling to look up each other, which is you know, which clearly demonstrates, where the U.S. is right now, due to their crazy political elites. Uh, Biden corrected himself at some point during that speech. I saw a video, and he said that, well, they have to look up Trump, and then he said, oh, politically, uh, whatever that means. I mean, just stupid mass murderer that Biden is. Взгляд newspaper is reporting that US is threatening Russia with more sanctions. This was stated by Finance Minister Janet of US, Janet Yellen, and she is threatening not just Russia with more sanctions, but also countries that are cooperating with Russia. And well, good luck with that. Countries that are cooperating with Russia are this world, right? Majority of this world. And the Janet Yellen and Western ruling class can do nothing about it. Literally nothing. They can create these sanctions or all. I mean, as many times, as many as they want. They can. I mean, work on their sick fantasies and generate tens of thousands of more sanctions. But at this point, all they are is laughing stock for this world, including this criminal Janet Yellen that should not be respected by anybody in this world, just a puppet of the globalists and part of this murderous U.S. elites. TASS news agency is reporting that Poland is closing Russian consulate in Poznan city. Okay, Warsaw is this extreme Russophobic leadership of Poland is looking for reasons basically, and when they have no actual reason, they are generating some reasons to further escalate with Moscow. They are gonna close now Russian consulate in Poland. Okay, Russia will respond, and at some point there will be no Russian diplomats in Poland, and there will be no Polish diplomats in Russia. If that's what Warsaw wants, then okay, go ahead. Uh, I mean, to be clear, by the way, to me personally, Polish elites are dirt, literally. Uh, I mean, I just don't, I truly don't care about them. I don't think many people in Russia do. They are just dirt, embarrassment for humanity, despicable garbage, and therefore, I think Polish leadership, Polish people will be better off if they will take out these criminals themselves before some other country was forced to do it, because that's what is going to happen eventually if these Nazis and the fascists in the Polish leadership will continue to push their country towards confrontation with its neighbors. That's what is going to happen. Um, Anyways, let's continue. RIA Nost is reporting that, well, after World Bank, International Monetary Fund was also basically forced to change its forecast on Russian economy. If you remember a few days ago, I reported that World Bank changed its forecast on Russian growth of Russian economy and increased numbers. And now International Monetary Fund is doing the same, and their forecasts have been changed, increased basically up to 3.6%, and the IMF experts are believing now that Russian economy in 2024 will grow as much as 3.6%. Although me personally, I believe real growth of Russian economy will be at least 4 to 4.5%, at least. And this is, by the way, is the highest growth number among higher than any country in G7. Even this quite conservative estimate from IMF is 3.6%, is significantly higher than any country in G7, right? And this is happening, by the way, despite all these thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of sanctions actually that collective West imposed on Russia, and there are plans to impose, according to this stupid bitch finance minister of US, right? Sick fucking animals, man. RIA Novosti is reporting that Roscosmos is issuing a warning that fragments of destroyed Intelsat 33E satellite is endangering now. Grouping of satellites on stationary orbit, on geostationary, right, orbit, including Russian satellites, and there are some measures being taken to, manipulate with the orbit of the satellites to avoid debris from this Intelsat 33E that broke up a couple of days ago, as far as I understand. At least connection with this satellite was lost a couple of days ago, and there are more than 80 different pieces of this satellite is now endangering whatever grouping of satellites are on that orbit. And I guess it's not just Russian satellites that been in danger, but also U.S., European satellites from global South, from African nations, from Latin America. So this warning goes for everyone, basically, to pay attention to this. And that's all. That's all for first update. How long is this video? Relatively long one, 41 for 2 minutes, but hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, useful, entertaining. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. This is the only way we can try to influence immensely aggressive YouTube's algorithm, by the way. And if you are watching on Rumble, please also leave some commentary and click that like button. That might help to promote channel among Rumble community. And if you can, dear friends, please share information about my channels with your friends in real life or on internet. And finally, if you like my work, if you like my channels and want to support her, you can do it with a donation and by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now for the first update. And as I said, later on today, I will have a second update on my Patreon and Boost pages with all the additional news that Russian media will report during the day. Have a great day and take care.